let me go across. There's Arpit Beriwal also joining us at this hour. Arpit, how are you looking at the index? First off, let's start off with that.
So very good afternoon to all. If you see, Nifty has been stuck in a range from last 4.5, 5 weeks, and the range is continually likely to be between 23,800 on the downside, whereas on the upside 24,400 is the hurdle zone. So in last 2 days, we have definitely seen some selling pressure at the higher levels, and today Nifty again took support near around 23,800 levels. So overall, from a weekly setup, definitely upside is capped. Immediate basis 24,500 was a major level. Now, from our expiry day point of view, for the monthly expiry, we see 24,200, 24,250 the hurdle zones. Whereas on the downside, 23,800 is a major support zone. Once it closes below 23,800, we can see more downside towards 23,600 levels. But till that time, when it is oscillating between this band, 23,800 is the level to watch out for. Whereas on the upside, 24,000, 24,200 is the hurdle zone. So overall, till it holds below 24,000, our bias would be slightly negative towards 23,800, 23,700 levels. If you talk about Bank Nifty, so Bank Nifty also seen a corrective phase of almost more than 1,500 points in last few sessions. And look at the setup wise, 56,500 was a major support zone, and it is hovering near that level itself. Look at the upside move, 57,250 is a hurdle zone. So overall, both the indices upside is capped with slightly negative bias.
Okay. I'm going to quickly address the numbers of Mahindra Life Spaces. Came out with numbers a few minutes ago, in fact, 10 minutes ago. You've got revenue at 962 crore. Of course, last year's revenue was just 32 crore. Believe there was no execution at that point of time. That number is wrong, by the way. Revenue is up from 32 crore to 962 crore. Profit also is up 69%. And EBITDA is up from 55 crore to 94 crore. I also want to quickly touch upon what the execution looked like in Q4 of FY26. And yes, that time too, there was a decent execution, 670 crore of top line. There's a significant pickup in terms of the execution. It's a record EBITDA on a console level for Mahindra Life Spaces. You can see the spike on the stock price as a result of that. But this is obviously execution which is playing out on the numbers of Mahindra Life. Realty, Kunal, would you at all at this point of time venture in?
So not exactly at the current levels, but yeah, I think real estate, realty as a sector could be something which I would probably look at maybe another 30 points on the 40 points on the downside on the index. We are at 887 thereabouts on the Nifty Realty Index. Maybe I think closer to 850 mark could be a much better point. This would probably bring in that classical mean reversion back to the 50 and the 200 moving average for Realty Index. So I'll just wait for maybe another couple of days. Whether it's a time-wise pause, whether it's a price-wise correction, we need to see over the next couple of days. But I think better price levels is where I would look at a contra buy on the real estate sector as well as the individual stocks.
Arpit, I wonder how you're looking at the banks. The Bank Nifty is down 1%, and there's evident pressure there. 6% lower on IndusInd. That's, of course, the top loser on the Nifty Bank by a mile. But give us a sense on banks in general. How would you play it at this point of time, if at all you would, and what's causing the pressure?
But definitely, once the results were out this weekend, post that we have seen selling pressure across all the private banks except ICICI Bank comparatively. So whether you talk about Axis Bank, HDFC Bank, Kotak, or today IndusInd Bank, so broadly private have been underperformer. Along with the PSU banks also have seen some selling pressure at the higher levels. So all in all, we have to focus that the mid-cap banks are relatively outperforming. Apart from that, majority of the banks are still under pressure. And if you see from the private banks, ICICI Bank is relatively placed better for the long side. Along with that, one counter that looks still strong, that is Federal Bank on the positive side. So if you see Federal Bank chart, relatively it is very strong technically on the monthly setup, forming higher highs, higher lows. On the weekly setup, a range breakout above 335 levels, holding well in spite of weakness in the Bank Nifty. So from a positive side, very few counters are there on the positives for to play on the long side. Apart from the rest of the banks, PSU and private banks, there is still some weakness. So it's better to wait for some reversal. Having said that, Bank Nifty is at the lower band of this channel where it has been oscillating from last couple of weeks. So you have to see tomorrow weekly closing whether Bank Nifty is able to surpass 57,000 or no. If it is not, then it's better to go short on selective PSU banks such as Bank of Baroda, Canara Bank, and within the private banks, weakness is likely to continue in IndusInd Bank.
Okay. And Kunal, IndusInd, give us a view on that one. 6.5%. By the way, volumes are 4 times 20-day average. So you've seen a surge in volumes. I wonder if this is just profit booking because wasn't visible on the numbers. Give us a perspective. And second, would you go out and venture a long call on HDFC, ICICI, Kotak, any of these large banks?
See, I would not be in a hurry to try and initiate a contra-buy into these names. One is because, when prices cool off or come back towards the support, it's not just a touched base, support for the stock price. Many a times these stocks, they spend, days around a key support point. So we need to identify that what could be that support level for many of these private sector banking names. For example, I think HDFC Bank has come back to that 740-ish kind of a zone. Over the last 1 or 2 days, at least the pace of selling for the stock price has reduced a tad bit from that 3%, 4% day towards 0.5% to 1% broadly. So we need to see a wait for a point where, say, over the next 3, 4, 5 days, the pace of selling reduces further, and you see these stocks just about trying to hold on to a strong, maybe a psychological support or a moving average based support. And same would be the case with the other names also. So IndusInd Bank, after this 6% plus downtick, looks to be a better attractive trade from the private sector banking names. But just as I mentioned, because that I would not be in a hurry and I would let the correction play out and then watch the support levels to try and go for a contra-buy zone. I'll just wait for another couple of days.
Okay, wait for a couple of days. All right, I'll have to slip into a very short break, take a bit of a breather, come back, talk more. There's IT as well, which we need to kind of address because there has been a bit of a recovery in IT as the day has gone by. But should you go out and buy on a day when Infosys is coming out with numbers? We'll give you that perspective on the other side. Cipla, of course, was a bit disappointing versus what the expectations were. Arpit, I wonder how you're looking at the pharma pack, Cipla and DRL in particular. How are they looking like on charts?
So if you see overall pharma index was in strong uptrend right from the March series till last 3 months. And in last few days, definitely have seen some cool off from the higher levels. And if you particularly look at the chart structure of Cipla, so if you see Cipla was relatively underperforming within the pharma basket also. And look in the weekly setup, Cipla was stuck in a range between 1320 to 1450 levels. And in last few sessions, definitely have seen a corrective move from 1480 to again 1400 levels. Having said that, it is broadly in a range. So 1340, 1350 could be a good support zone where we can enter again for an upside move towards 1460, 1480 levels. We're not talking about Dr. Reddy. So if we see Dr. Reddy has already been a corrective phase from last couple of weeks. So where the entire pharma index was at life high territory, Dr. Reddy has been an underperformer. And looking at the monthly setup, definitely a big bearish candle has been formed, though some recovery from the lower levels. But if you look at the setup wise, it is at make or break level near 1150 levels. So it's better to wait for Dr. Reddy to make any call rather than if we see Cipla, it is a trading bet. So better we can add near around 1350 levels with 1300 as a stop loss for an upside move towards 1450, 1480 levels.
Okay, that's the take with regard to some of the pharma names. Kunal, from the pharma pack, anything that's standing out for you in terms of a trade?
Yeah, Sun Pharma is something which looks attractive. The stock is still one of the most solid stocks on the large cap pharma front, still trading at 1940, 50 levels. More importantly, the recovery the stock has shown from its intraday lows today, the lack of correction or the less degree correction for the stock with respect to the previous or yesterday's low, and propensity of the pharma sector to try and outperform in times or in certain times when the market gets into a bit of a rough patch. I think all of that is positive for the pharma index. So I would be of the belief that I think Sun Pharma could be a decent bet at the current levels. Even DV Slab, Laurus Labs, they are the ones which are still holding up quite strong for themselves. Aurobindo Pharma, the recent price trend has been a little bit more volatile, but I would sense that if the stock comes, say, closer to 1450, 1500 range, at the midpoint of this range, that could be a better price points to go for Aurobindo Pharma. And maybe one last stock in the pack would be Biocon. That stock is also holding up pretty well, closer to that 430, 440 range.
How do you look at NTPC Green? Again, numbers, and Arpit, how do you look at the stock?
So if you see overall NTPC Green was in downtrend from last almost 12 weeks. And surprisingly, the stock is still under pressure. But today we have seen good uptick on good volumes. But if you look at the setup on a daily scale, it is still trading below its 200 DEMA and short-term moving averages. So I think from a setup wise, it's just a reversal play. Key level to watch out for would be definitely 100 level on the closing basis. Once it closes above 100 level, then only there will be some confirmation on the weekly time frame for a bounce back move towards 105, 110 levels. But till that time, bias would be slightly negative till it closes below 100 levels.
Adani Enterprises down 4% today in trade. Kunal, you're positive with regard to the Adani group of stocks. Any changes just given this very sharp 4% move?
Yeah, so I think this could probably be like a profit booking spree which is happening. Many a times we see stocks and sectors which have performed very well for weeks and for months. They go into a mean reversion or profit booking because of the kind of the setup of the markets as such. So I would sense that this could be a profit booking wave. There could be a possibility that the wave may extend on the downside for a few more days for the stock price. The nearest support which you're pegging for Adani Enterprise, for example, is at 2850 mark. Stock is currently still hovering above 3000 levels. Then the recent highs for the stock was 3230, 3250 levels for Adani Enterprise. So we are expecting that maybe there could be a drift down back towards 2850 mark. And if that happens in a very short span of time, that could actually be a good advantage or a price point where traders could look at a contra buy.
And how do you look at Nestle, Arpit? The 3% knock on the stock today?
If you see overall FMCG index has been a very surprising sector. If it's a very few stocks are at life high territory rather than all other counters in weak trend. So Nestle, if you see the monthly side, would definitely is a huge outperformer. A classical pole and flag breakout on the monthly time frame above 1350, 1380 levels. Though the stock has corrected from its life high territory, but looking at the positional setup, very important support is around 1380 levels, and the sector is likely to whenever we see some bounce back move in the FMCG, Nestle is likely to lead. So overall, the bigger trend is positive with major support around 1380 levels. The stock can eventually head towards 1500, 1600 positionally. Yeah, it could take a breather after a rally from 1400 to 1500, but the bigger trend is positive with overall buy on dip stance with major support around 1380 levels.